Hey everyone, how's everybody doing this morning? I am about to share my post here, so on my Facebook. So, at the beginning of the program, I always just take a second to share on my personal email. So let me just do that. And post here, so oops, my Facebook. So beginning hold on one second, everyone. Just one moment, and I will be sharing this. And after I share this, we can how do I do this? Copy link. Sorry, it's only been a few years, and I'm still, I'm still learning. Aren't we all? Okay. All right. So today we are going to talk about a subject that Ben Franklin was the example of this. There's a lot of things that I think he, and today at Morning Coffee for the Soul, we're talking about for the past, for 13 weeks, we're talking about Ben Franklin's virtues. And Ben, on this one, this is the 6th week, and we're talking about industry. A lot of the virtues that he chose to work on, and people think that these are virtues that he had and he was perfect about them. No, these are virtues that he chose for him to work on and kind of do that self analysis. And really, at the end of the day, see how he was doing on that and what he can improve on that. We know that from the Spirit's book, how St. Augustine would do kind of the same thing. At the end of the day, he would see what he could have done better, what he would have done differently, and the next day, what he could improve on. So Ben was not no different. What is interesting is that every virtue, and we can do our own virtues and our own set of virtues and work on them. Industry is what? Industry is really work. Now, in the Spirit's book, on the last part of the Spirit's book, there are the moral laws. And one of the laws, actually, of the universe is work. You have to work. But then some people say, well, do I want to work? Do I really have to work? Can somebody work and take care of me? Ben said that we should never lose any time. I got a little cold, so my voice is a little funny. Ben said, lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. And then he also says, cut off all the unnecessary actions. Now, what is that? It's so interesting because this specific virtue, it ties exactly with the law of work and the Spirit's book. So, being that it's Kardec radio, of course, we unite psychology, we unite spiritism, we unite knowledge from history, as we are doing now with Ben Franklin. But we know that we really, Chico Xavier would say that the biggest regret when we pass away, when we disincarnate, and we reach the other side, is the conscience of how much time we wasted here on earth. So, how much the most precious coin, the token that we have the most in this world, and everybody has the same token, is the 24 hours a day. And it's interesting because how much of that is really wasted in building bridges that we'll never cross. That's the first thing. When Ben says cut off all the unnecessary actions, it goes really much into wasting time. How much time do we waste in talking? How much time do we waste on TV, on the computer, and all of that? And we're not here to point fingers because we actually need some time to do nothing. I have my time to watch my shows that it's those shows that the bridal show or the home whatever network or you know well then again if I'm learning something it's still okay, but sometimes you want to watch cartoons and you want to watch whatever that you're not going to learn much from it, but you do need some time to relax. You need some time. We're not talking about those times. We're talking about really when you put your mind to nothing, to really just waste time and gossip. You waste time just really if you stay on the entire day at home and you're just playing video games. And that is what Ben is talking about here. And a lot of times we start projects that we never finish. How many of us have, sometimes we have musical instruments around the house, half read books all over the house. We have cooking books, recipe books that we marked to what we're going to do, and we study and we buy all the products and we never end up making the stuff. So there's a lot of bridges that we kind of start building and never really finish building, or we never even cross the bridge. And that's a problem, because that is in a way wasting time. It's not in a way, it is wasting time. You start, but you don't continue. So it's important for us to really pick in our lives, what are the things that are going to be things that we're going to follow through. There is no point in wasting it and starting so many different projects and finishing nothing. There's that saying that there are some people that are jack of all trades and master of none. And it's important to be a jack of all trades and know a little bit of everything. I do believe that. However, you should really become master of a few things in life. And that means dedicate to a few things in life. I dedicate to my spiritus center because I enjoy it. I love it. I love doing something for others. I love even more what I receive from when I'm there. So when you dedicate a few things, when you dedicate your, that is industry. Now we take Ben Franklin, for example. He dedicated to so many things, but the most amazing thing about him is that he didn't just start to build bridges that he never crossed. He actually built so many bridges and he crossed them all. And he left a legacy of inventions. He left a legacy of all kinds of, I mean, our country, you know, he was one of those in the beginning. And Ben would invent, Ben would reinvent. Ben was never idle. I don't think every documentary, every history book, anything that talks about Ben Franklin, in very little time that he actually was not doing something, not thinking something. Even when he went to Europe and he was trying to figure out the mapping, you know, of the Gulf Stream, all that stuff, and the mapping, he actually on his travel, he really mapped it out, you know, for the ships to come, for the strategy, the best way. So even in his travels, and it wasn't most of it leisurely travels, it was always with a purpose. So Ben always had a purpose. And then he always says, you know, lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. Work, sometimes we think that work has to be when you wake up and a 9 to 5 and you have to be doing something either with a pen and you're doing contracts all day and whatever it is, or you have to have a lawnmower and you're cutting lawn all day. The Spirit's book was very clear about that, because Kardec was what a man, and he would ask, and he said, well, what is meant by work? Does it mean that you have to have a 9 to 5? It doesn't mean that, you know, that is remunerated. You have to be paid for what you do. That's considered work. In question 675, the answer to that is no. Any useful, right? Any useful occupation. Now think about it. Any useful occupation is considered work. So if you're writing poetry, if you are learning, if you are going to school for something, you are using that time for something purposeful, with purpose. Okay, sometimes, you know, but with purpose. So if you are using your time for something that matters, and it's something useful, then it is work. Wow, that's great. Because you know what? What if we retire? Some people work all their lives so they can do nothing down the road. That is a very ill thought, because, well, usually that's when you start getting diseases, that's when you start getting depressions, and when you start, your mind stops working, you start getting a lot of different mental illnesses as well. And I'm not just saying related to age. Of course, there's age appropriate after retirement, illnesses after retirement, but the vast majority is really tied to the idea of idleness, of doing nothing. And our body understands that as, okay, well, now it's time to do nothing. So why am I here? And some people would ask, well, if you have enough money, if you have enough to provide, and if you've achieved success, financial success, do you still have to keep working? Kardec, back in the day, right, over 150 years ago, had the same thought. And he also asked the spirits on question 679 of the Spirit's book. And he asked the same question. He said, well, if we have enough, right, do we have to continue to work? And the spirits would say that not for material things. You don't have to do even material work. You don't have to keep working because you already have enough, but you still have to work with your brain, with your intelligence to continue to be useful, continue to do work for others. How many people decide they have enough for themselves? So now they're going to do enough, they'll do something for others. And we're still a little selfish. I mean, most of us have enough for ourselves and we still don't do anything for others. Um, I'm sorry, I don't want to generalize it, but a lot of us, okay? A lot of people, I guess. Ben was not one of those. Ben Franklin retired at 42. I don't know if it's 44 or 42. 42, I think. Ben Franklin retired at 42. Now, he came from nothing. So a lot of us too can fall into that category that didn't have anything at, I don't know, 18, 20. And Ben didn't. Ben actually came, right? He came all the way from Boston. He went to Philly. When he got to Philadelphia, and he was a young man, was not an adult really, and he got there with some crumbs, some bread, and just a change of clothes, and he kind of started his life from very nothing really, not even very little. But the thing is, industry was something so important to Ben. He really wanted to work. He really wanted to make something out of not just himself, but he couldn't just stand still and see um, things happening that he couldn't improve on. Everything he touched, he improved on, and the things that he couldn't understand why it had to be that way, he would invent a better way to do it, right? We know the lightning rod. We know, well, he tried a new alphabet as well, but he's done a lot of things. He's done a lot of inventions that we'll know about fins. He did a lot of things. You have to look it up and you see a lot of the inventions because he couldn't stand to just sit there. Another thing, and he was involved in politics. He was always arguing for what he believed was the correct things. And so this is not idleness. See, even if you are employed in any activity of meetings that will better something, that is work. So we don't have to worry about being it something that you get paid for. So at 42, Ben had already achieved a status, and he was again, he was a very hard worker, but he has achieved a status where he already had enough money. He realized that I have enough. I don't need any more. What do I do now? Do I just retire? I lay down and that's it. I go to a little beach and I stay there for the rest of my life. Not really. Ben decided that, okay, well, then now at 42, since I have enough, I can stop working for money and I can start devoting myself more for the good causes in the world. And he did. So that goes exactly with question 679, where the spirits tell Kardec that yes, if you have enough material things, you have enough money, why not um, give yourselves to other causes as well? And sometimes people that have enough, they fall into a very futile life. They fall into, we see TV, how many reality shows that sometimes we look at, and people that just have too much money, they don't have enough, they don't have to work enough, they don't have enough, sorry, they do not have to work for the material things, and they are wasteful, completely useless. There is no one going to learn anything. Nobody's working for a cause. No one is sharing some of what they have. It's just a feudal life. It's just about buying more and more houses and show how much they, ostentation really, just showing how much they have and how much more they can have. And they get into these bickering with their families. They want to show you how much their pants cost. Do you believe there are jeans that cost more than a car? Yes, there are pants that cost more than a car. I cannot fathom the idea of it. It's beyond, it blows my mind. But so there, we go into those tests, right, of richness and of poorness. What are we going to do here on earth if we have enough? And if we waste, are we going to come back in a future life to the same benefits of having much of the haves, or are we going to have to at some point come back as a have not because of the wasteful ways that we behaved? Not every case is the same case, but that is a generalization on why we have to go through being rich at a few lives, and why we have to come back as um, in a needful situation, in a more financial with financial hardships. A lot of times we did not make good use out of what we had. So it's important for us to know, to see what you have. Are you being wasteful with what you have? And another thing is, um, Kardec also asked a question about, that was in 943 on the Spirit's book. Kardec asked, where does that feeling of dislike, of emptiness, that feeling of just things that just doesn't make sense. I just feel empty. There's not really anything worth it. Um, a lot of people go into a deep depression. Some people end their lives because they feel that it doesn't matter. Nothing here matters. They don't matter. So Kardec asked that question. And the spirits will say, well, usually that feeling comes from three sources. That feeling comes from idleness, lack of faith, and satiety. Satiety is when you have too much. You have more than enough. What is there for you to achieve? You see, Ben Franklin used that perfectly. He had enough. He had more than what he had, more than what he needed. So he went on doing it for others, doing it for different causes. So he changed. He was like a man of so many hats. And we can do that. People that are always claiming that they're bored is if they really look at what else they could be doing, they're going to understand that there's much work to be done. And there is no excuse really to be bored. Um, if you look, I don't think there is one town in the world that doesn't have some kind of volunteer activity. There is not any activities at all. It's a matter of us getting so comfortable in our own lives, and then we go into this feeling of pity, of poor me. And I refuse to, sometimes I have someone that I'm talking to, or someone at the center that comes in, and you can clearly see that some people want you to just go like, oh, you poor thing, you poor thing. And I never do that, because nobody is a poor thing. Everybody is an amazing person who has so many different capabilities. And all you have to do is try them out. So you can say, well, I have this empty feeling, and I don't have a purpose here. Everybody has a purpose. God does not create purposeless things or beings. If you are to believe that God is good, He is a creator of all goodness, then you are good. And you have a purpose for being here. The thing is, are you going to waste away your purpose? So again, satiety is one of those things that you have enough. So now what? I don't need anything. You see those TV shows. A lot of the TV shows, people, they're they just have this hunger for more and more and more, and it's never enough, but it's never satisfying. With Ben Franklin at 42, he said, that's enough. That's all I need. So now let's move on to different things. So he was the opposite of that. The other thing is lack of faith, of course. If you have nothing um, to believe that there's something bigger than you, that you have no motivation at all, it's a problem. But then idleness is one of the things. So when you have no work, and when people have, it may be depression, it may be whatever it is, one of the best things, the best recipes for someone that has either depression or this emptiness, of this feeling of purposeless, of not having a purpose, is work. So, but then maybe the person doesn't need work. They have enough money, they have enough things, they don't want to get another job. Well, is there volunteer work? I always talk about sometimes with my clients or with people, and I always say, look, there's four things you need in life for you to be working at an optimal level. First, you have to make sure medically you're well. So we take care of ourselves medically. And once I'm fine and I checked myself and I'm getting taking care of my body and my soul and my mind and all of that, then I have to move on to the psychological aspect. So, are you taking care of your emotions? Are you taking care of you psychologically? Are you being able to handle the pressures that you go through? Do you need a support group? Do you need a therapist? Do you need so medical, psychological, spiritual? Of course, you have to have some people claim they don't have any connection with any kind of spirituality, that they're atheists. But at the end, there's always a belief in something higher. And that to them may be considered almost a spiritual, um, connection. We did here before, I did on the Morning Coffee for the Soul, the 12 steps of the Alcoholics Anonymous. And we talked about spirituality. And some people would consider the program itself as their God. So we know about that, right? So spiritual connection, it may be whatever it is. To us, of course, it's God, is as Jesus is our God, is our leader, our reason to follow, our model. But in Kardec, as the teachings, he clarifies all of the gospel. And then the last thing is volunteerism. So you have medical, you have psychological, you have spiritual, and you have that part that is the volunteer. If you do absolutely no volunteer work at all, and I'm not saying it has to be you have to join the Peace Corps or the Red Cross. Volunteer could be something as simple as volunteering at work, extra hours to do something. It could be volunteering at your children's school to help out with any activity they have. And of course, if we're spiritists and we're talking here in Kardec Radio, why not volunteer at your spiritist center, at your church, wherever it may be? There are so many places that are moved, and they exist because of volunteers. I know my spiritist center, of course, it's all volunteers. Nobody gets paid, and we're moved all by donations, right? So if you do absolutely no volunteer work, if you do nothing for others, if you take no time of your life to do something for others, you will never fully appreciate. You will have lived, but you will never fully have appreciated what your purpose is here on earth. So, and it's very easy to get greedy, right? It's very easy to say, well, I used to volunteer, I used to help out with something, and then my boss called me, or I got another job, or I was offered something else, and more money, and it becomes about money. It doesn't become about, like Ben Franklin, 42, he retired because he understood he had too much. He understood, wow, I have enough. I have 42. It's amazing. I keep repeating this because it's amazing. He just realized that he made enough money that he can live comfortably. And now he wanted to do something for others. And he wanted to really continue to work, but not for himself. So, and also not work to the point that you have no time. That's another thing that we always have to remember, not working to the bone, really. Working, if you work to the point where your health is going not well, if you're starting to work to the point where you can't see your husband can't see you, your children have no time to reach you because you're always working, it's time sometimes for us to stop and think, okay, I'm going to eventually get older and I'll have all this gold, but I'll never have memories of being with them, or of talking to my children, of hanging out with my husband, because it was all about the money. It was all about, so we have to be very careful about that, to have a balance. Remember Ben Franklin, we talked about um, um, temperance. So that was the first virtue, was temperance. You have to find a middle ground. How much is too much for anything? I take my Saturdays and Sundays as my volunteer work, and it doesn't take much from the other time because I try to work things in between. And I know some people work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and look, it's commendable. It's especially for those who really are making the money to support others, and without you, things, your children wouldn't have a lot of the things they have. But just when you have enough, you can just switch from working for material things to working in your knowledge, your intelligence. We have intelligence to be worked on, not to be wasted. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is this industry that Ben Franklin talks about. It goes for children too. And sometimes society is even allowing children, well, parents feel guilty because they're always working, and to compensate that, they just buy things for children. They give everything their children want. It has to be the best. It has to be, and children are actually almost screaming to also do something for themselves. They feel good when they do some kind of work and they get the recompense from their own work. And then we want to just kind of shield our children from the life out there where we should be enhancing their abilities. They're going to grow into children that don't have a good self-esteem, that they feel that they're not capable of things if we don't allow them to do things or even expect them to do things. A 5-year-old can do a lot of things. They can help mom dry the dishes. They can sweep. They can give them a little broom and say, okay, you're going to help mommy. You did all your cutting of your homework. Now we're going to clean. But what are we doing? We make their beds. We clean up right after them. And we're not really teaching them the value of being useful. And again, that's Ben Franklin's industry. I don't know. I like to, I like to really emphasize on the importance of work, not being something that it's just done to get money, but in being useful. Let's try to be useful today to somebody else, to us. Let's try. Is there any kind of volunteer work that we can do today? Anything at all. Anything that we can be useful to somebody else. I know today I'm going to the Spiritus Center. Actually, I have a lecture in New York in a little while. So I'm traveling to New York, then I'm traveling to my center. And at the center, there's so much to be done. There are so much. Anybody that walks in there and says, Deb, is there anything that I could do? I said, absolutely. There's work. There's work to be done. There's the storage area that is chaos that we have to put together. The kitchen, we have to organize things. The books, we have to put prices on them. So there's always work. And I think it feels good to participate in the whole thing, in the whole world, not just your own little cocoon, but to be part of something that's going to be leaving for somebody else. Thank you, everyone. I hope that you can, I guess, listen to this from the beginning. If you just walked in now, it's very interesting because now today we definitely joined Spiritism, the Book of the Spirits from Kardec with Ben Franklin's industry, virtue. So go back to the beginning if you haven't, and really pay attention because it's the lesson is there. What are we going to choose? Are we going to choose to build these bridges that we're never going to cross? We're going to try all these projects and we're never going to finish them. Are we going to open all these books and never finish reading them? Are we going to start buying all the materials to build and just leave the materials in the garage and never build? Are we wasting a lot of time, or are we being useful? Being useful in work means anything productive you're a part of. It could be writing poetry, it could be talking to your children, teaching them something, learning something, going to school for something. All of this is work. Big kiss. Sorry about my voice. Again, got a little cold, but as long as you understood, we're all good. Thank you, everyone. Next week, we'll be here with week 7, and that'll be the 7th virtue. Okay? I'll talk to you guys next week.